everyone, hey, and welcome back to yet another episode of Battle Rap Resume. This is your host, Tom Kwei here. Today we are recapping King of the Dots World Dom 8. This just happened yesterday at the Steel Yard, which was the scene of Summer Madness 8, and I'm sure tons of future Battle Rap events. Is a really awesome venue. We are going to look back, go through all the battles. I actually wasn't there in person. My birthday is coming up very soon, so I was away. But of course, I didn't really want to do anything but watch the pay-per-view. Got the pay-per-view. It was an incredible quality by Avo. It was great to support, as always. And yeah, today we're going to go through the battles with someone who was there in the building. Just before we do that, follow the show at Battle Rap Resume. Get in touch with me, battlerapresume@gmail.com if you want to correspond, you want to come on the show. Recently got a message through the Facebook page. A guy wants to do like battle rap sins, battle rap cliches, things that people always do, talking through rounds or scheming through the card or all these sort of eye-rolling things that we always encounter in battle rap. So that's going to be really fun. So if you want to come on, if you've got an idea for a show or a retrospective or anything like that, get in touch with me. If you enjoy the show, you want to support the show, comment below, subscribe to us on YouTube, leave us a review on iTunes. We're on Patreon as well if you want to support the show. All the episodes like this episode, like, G-Dash's Battle Rap Resume, which is coming out this week, and all the rest go on there first. So, World Dom 8, very, very exciting to have it over here, and I'm joined by the man, Pat. Pat, how's it going, man?
Hey man, very good, very good. Nice to be on the show.
Yeah, no, great to have you on. I mean, we caught up initially at Summer Madness 8, but
yeah.
Your roots go deep in the scene, and it was funny because I noticed you on the Saturday. As I say, I couldn't get to the event itself, but Avo invited me, and I bit his hand off basically and came down to do some watches. It was me, Caustic, Bamalam, Kruger, and himself. We watched 4 great battles. We saw, what did we see?
It's a good team.
So Olding, yeah, great, yeah, great pair, great, like dream team there, and myself. But we had Soul versus Old English, Pedro versus Definition, Tony D versus Shotty Horror, and C Major and Cracker versus Shuffler. Those are all on the Ruin Your Day Patreon, and they'll be out on the channel soon. Those were really, really fun episodes. But I was watching Shuffler versus C, which I've watched hundreds of times. We all kind of agreed on the watch that it's Shuffler's. It's kind of their towering performance, I would say. I'd say maybe they got a bit more sophisticated, a bit more experimental, but just the essence of who they are came across in that clash. And, I was there in the day. I was at the back of the room. I didn't realize you were on stage. I noticed you there. Like, how did you get up there?
So, which was that?
That was 5th birthday.
Yeah. So I did all the design, like all the flyer design for the 5th birthday for a start. So I had been working for Don't Flop for a while, under Sam Graphics basically. He used to just outsource me for things. So for the whole year and a bit before then, I'd been making stuff like the April Fool's flyer and loads of other things like that. I did the O'Shea shit on a shark T-shirt as well. I designed that for him.
That was you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's an iconic print. That is fun.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So I was kind of like already kind of deep in the scene, and for that sort of event, I think that was the first event where I really had like stage access and stuff, and it was that whole event is still like historically one of my favorite things I ever went to, because there was just some really classic UK battle moments in it,
Yeah. And I mean, how did it start for you? How did you get into battle rap in general?
So the first event I ever went to was in London, and it was a kind of a small event. It was the one where the headline was like Stowaway versus who's the I'm forgetting now. Soweto Kinch.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was like Soweto's tryout, I think.
Yeah, and that was pretty early doors as well.
Yeah, really early.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see me in that video or in some of those videos as well. But my friend was basically doing a tryout there against Locksmith, and it was.
Was that Wayne Rooney MC?
Yeah, and it was like the lost battle because he ended up having it taken offline and stuff. There was a whole palaver. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But basically. That's the reason why I was there, and I just loved it. I mean, I've been a singer-songwriter for years, and I love lyrics, and I love hip-hop, and so I was instantly, as soon as I saw some of the good stuff, I was like, wow, this is this is the pinnacle of where wordplay can go, So for me, I was just hooked from there.
So yeah, building up to World Dom 8 then, of course it was very, very exciting that King of the Dot were coming back over here. The chalked out, I think Jump Off were involved as well in some sort of capacity. That imprint was returning. Now, you're in a kind of unique position, as I say before we first met properly at Some Madness 8. So you were there at the Steelyard during that, in my opinion, the greatest event I've ever been to.
It was amazing.
Some Madness 8. It was just astonishing, really, the crowd and, how attentive and electrifying it was. Watching on the pay-per-view, it seems a bit of a night and day situation with the crowd. Is that fair to say?
Well, okay, so it was definitely less well attended. Let's say that. You had a lot more room to kind of spread out. I think, like, once the battles kicked off, the room had quite a few people in it, but it wasn't the turnout of SM8. And also, I think there was more of the usual kind of battle crowd there. So a lot of the don't flop heads and people like that. Whereas I don't know about you, but I found SM8 to be full of so many people I'd never seen before. And I've been, going to battles for years and years and years. And there was maybe 10 to 15 dudes in there that I knew. So it was quite a different energy for sure.
And watching on the pay-per-view, I think it was supposed to kick off at 3. I think we got the first battle, Shocks Ilmac, which, to be fair, I think it was supposed to be Bobby Caustic, and then there was a slight delay. Was it just classic battle rap time? Were you guys waiting around a lot? Or?
Yeah, we were. I mean, the nice thing was there was loads of people. You've been to a bunch of events, and there was loads of people around to chat to and catch up with, which was cool. But yeah, it was a case of, basically Bobby Rex was late arriving, I think, and they kept sort of pushing it back, I think, because their battle was meant to go first. And then eventually they just went, okay, we'll put on Shocks Ilmac first. Which is a crazy battle to open your event with. Do you know what I mean? That's those are two of the names that were the main reason for me copping a ticket. So, yeah.
Shocks Ilmac, a dream battle that a few years ago anyone would have put on a fantasy forum post, never thinking it will go down. It happened yesterday, and Shocks, he felt distracted throughout the battle, and he did post this on the Reddit update thread that I'll just quote from now. Biggest and sincerest apologies. I needed to pull out because of some major family tragedy, but I didn't want to let anyone down who had spent their money, so I did it. But I was still writing last night for the biggest battle of my life. My head just couldn't get into the game. I owe you all big time. So embarrassed. So, with that context, it's completely understandable. But just in general, for me, it just felt like a different Shocks. It didn't feel like, I always quote the Sleepy G Shocks, but that's the archetype that I adore. But also, the Soul Shocks, the Raptor one-rounder Shocks, the endless punching, insurmountable creativity Shocks. His material was just a little bland. Although I will say, I think he had the punch of maybe even the punch of the day here with the whole rum nitty back-to-back punches until my hand seize up. That was so original. But like a lot of these battles, it was quite one-sided. I think Ilmac took it quite convincingly.
Yeah, Ilmac just... he outclassed him, and the thing is you can't. I think Ilmac would have won regardless of Shocks chokes, because his material was so good, and he's just such a solid performer. This is the second time I've seen him live, because I was at the Premier Battles event that he was at, and he is just. You cannot fuck up around him. You need to give your best performance if you stand a chance. You know what I mean? And Shocks just didn't do that. He had some great quotables, but he just. He stumbled in the second. The first was quite good. It's even arguable that he could have edged the first. It's possible. But the second was weak, and he stumbled, and the third was just choke city. So he was done then.
And the crowd felt a bit muted to me. They both got introduced. I think Shock should get a hero's welcome on that stage at this moment. It felt like no one really cared.
Well, I think in the room. There was definitely more reaction than you could hear on the live stream, because I was getting people saying that it was silent and stuff, but people were reacting and stuff. But I think because that was the first battle, definitely people hadn't quite warmed into it yet, which is why you put kind of warm up battles on. You don't usually go straight into this kind of level. So I don't think people were quite primed yet. And also I think, normally because obviously the only host they had there was Organic, and normally they have a lot more people up there kind of revving everyone up, and I think at first people were like, oh, is it actually starting yet? You know, and it didn't quite feel that way yet.
Yeah, there didn't seem to be too many people on stage. Like, I was saying to Avo before when we were doing the watches of, is it sold out? And, he obviously said, no way. We don't know if we're going to do a pit or not. We don't know how that's going to look. Are we going to get people on stage? And there still was some vintage Shocks stuff there. I mean, Shocks is a battler that I really respect for his vocabulary and his diction. And you battle Ilmac, you mentioned Saurus, you mentioned Pete, but he mentioned, like, I can't quite remember the bar, but you mentioned Pete, P-E-A-T, like the sort of the boggy ground, the sort of the soil, which I thought was really...
Yeah, it was like a grave bar where he's putting peat, he's shoveling peat.
Yeah, shallow grave, like throwing peat, the crowd were a little quiet. I mean, there's a lot of detail to Shocks' bar that you have to listen to. Black with words, so in the end, credits given, which was really nice. And that kind of happened as well for Ilmac. I thought a lot of his stuff was slept on. He had an Inception scheme early on, stomp on Shocks in the street like a pogo stick. I mean, a lot of intelligent stuff. And one of the things we saw in Ilmac's first, which we saw with Sharon and a few other battlers, which was great. A lot of respect given to Bender through long multi-streams.
Oh yeah, he did that whole Bender scheme. Yeah. And then, and he even did the bit at the end where he's like, I didn't say, and then listed off loads more multis. And that was just great to watch,
Yeah, and, Shocks went with a high angle in the second. Shocks, I don't want to be down on Shocks, because I do genuinely adore Shocks, both as a battler and a person. Yeah. I think he's great, absolutely one of the greatest in my eyes. I love this guy. And I think it was kind of sad to see, he kept saying he was sorry, and it came across very earnest and sincere, like he genuinely was apologetic. This wasn't something that of out of score. But even stuff like Michelangelo with the candles blown, you try and paint me in a bad light, it's really clever.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then he had just some straight punches that were really good, like where he said, "No Kung Lao, but hats off, you were sharp at your peak."
Yeah.
And he did. It's about to be celebrity deathmatch because I'm gonna stop motion in the ring. I thought that was dope.
That's an old reference, though. I understood why that didn't connect. That's kind of like from our MTV2 heads. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he did another one as well where he said, "I'll rock a fake spinal tap." Yeah. Heat stick him over the hood like vinyl wrap or something. And most, like, Spinal Tap is a hella old reference, Yeah.
I mean, if my Derek Small homies are out there, I love Spinal Tap. It's an incredible movie. But Shocks is that kind of guy. He's always got those wry references. A lot of people are going to remember this battle mostly probably for Ilmac's whole Don't Flop title didn't have a title sort of idea, which is a really well-executed, humorous angle.
It was so funny, man. Yeah, where he's like, even Grind Time had a T-shirt, and like you won the championship, so you earn a special place in Ur's heart or something like that. That was fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah, it really was. And that whole air guitar world championships, and the irony. There's nothing to commemorate what you've taken, and the angle went off really well. And it was just. I don't know. It was just hard to see Shocks choking. It's like when you see a dog getting old and it struggles to fetch the ball anymore. It was like, it was painful.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna write him off like that.
No, of course. I mean, no, Shocks is fire. But it's kind of he kind of should have bodied Ilmac, and I think if he came with an old school Shocks but is it kind of like Gemini's sort of ended that Shocks? It's like, I don't know, because we didn't really see it in the center battle.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying there. I mean, I think he was fire in the center battle, but I see what you're saying there. I do sort of think, like, because he released that send video, didn't he, before the battle?
So good, yeah.
And it was really good, and I think he ended up using one of the bars for that in the battle, and that's what makes me believe. Part of what makes me believe his story, besides the fact that he's an honest dude, but like. I feel like he did get to the point where he was just like, oh shit, I've got to scrape this battle together, and just do it. And I think even the fact that they had to go on first also kind of messed him up, because if he was going over and over his bars before they went on stage, and I feel like given another 45 minutes, an hour, he might have had more of it locked, you know what I mean, and put in a more solid performance. And I think he was expecting to be able to have that extra time, and it just wasn't there. So
yeah. I mean, we're spending a lot of time on Chucks, but that's not to say that Ilmak wasn't terrific throughout. You know, I think the experience showed more than anything. He was just so composed, and you know, he was quite magnanimous as well. Like Chucks was flagging and wavering, and he gave him time. And you know, in a Danny Myers parallel universe, like this was the greatest battle of all time, and it was a disappointment, I have to say. Like Shocks didn't really deliver, but you know, we quoted earlier the context, the idea of that, and it was a shame. And you know, Shocks the Rebel, Ilmak says, like rebelling against rapping in his rounds.
Honestly, I really do think that Ilmak's in the GOAT conversation. I mean, I think I'm not obviously not the first person to say that clearly, but he is. His last few battles have really just put him. He's at his like top level writing at the minute, I think, you know, and even like he said some stuff that's like kind of basic, but no one said it. Like I'll surprise Shucks with the hands like the buzzer prank.
Yeah.
Great. Nice. And then he did like why the fuck would I feel Shucks when I'm so grounded in the circuit, and just
that was the ending. Yeah, that was a good ending.
Classic. I think Ilmak's he's just crazy, that guy. He's really good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if the battle would have went on a little later, maybe if, you know, Shocks, maybe they didn't have a stand-in and save the day and stop people delaying, maybe it would have been Shocks. I mean, who knows? You know, Battle Rap's so full of maybes, and unfortunately, it's cemented on the pay-per-view for us all to see. Next battle going forward was Sharon versus Award, which, in my eyes, kind of saved the card. I think this was a great clash, and it's probably the only battle of the night that was debatable.
Yeah. I mean, I got to be on the stage for that battle, and it was absolutely crazy up there because, you know, you were hearing it, you know, the way that the battlers were hearing it. So like, you know, when Award did that flip about the train going overhead, and it really felt like, you know, you were in that moment with him, you know, he, because I don't know if you could hear it on the pay-per-view, but basically you would have known from SMA, trains run over the thing and the whole room rumbles. And he was just in the middle of this scheme, and then threw the flip, like threw the freestyle in about how, you know, God was listening or whatever. And it just was like incredible. It was a really powerful moment. You know what I mean? It really worked. And, also getting to see the way the crowd looked from their eyes and stuff, it was really sick.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the crowd because the pay-per-view angle, we could see straight onto the crowd, and I love seeing Nathan Jones there, my right-hand man, DRR graphic designer, Martin Richards was there, Naz was there, all the guys that are always on the front row, and it was a far more pocketed crowd. Like, you know, I remember seeing Twerk versus Arsenal with Jonathan Smith at my side, who's a really good guy, and it was packed. It was like a fucking gig, you know what I mean? You were shoulder to shoulder with these guys, but here it looked a bit more relaxed. And this was the battle, other than Shocks versus Ilmak, that I was probably most looking forward to. And it's been interesting to see the debate go out online. Now, I personally have Sharon winning quite clearly, actually.
What, do you have him as 3-0?
Not as 3-0, but maybe 3-0. I mean, a lot of people are talking about Award's second round. I thought it was kind of a flawed round.
Really?
You know, it opened with that ban sequence, which I thought was quite boring. A lot of Award's punches don't really crystallize to anything. Don't get me wrong, the guy's fantastic. But I've seen him better. I've seen him better against Agichi, against DP the Mercenary, you know, St. Mike and stuff like that. But getting into this battle, I thought Award started out well.
I thought his first was really great, and I actually thought, okay, well, if Sharon doesn't respect this battle, then that first could be a round winner. But then Sharon came in so aggressively, and he smashed it. His first was really, I mean, he took the first clearly.
Very, very clearly. I mean, you know, Award bringing the wild and out kind of idea. And like, I love like niche, not even niche, but kind of goofy movie references. So the punches, you've been chasing a disaster your whole life. So Award's thinking, how am I going to write this punch? I know, I'll reference Helen Hunt in Twister. Like, you know, a movie that, you know, I'm 26, so it's like my generation, we know Twister. I think came out in like 97, 99, whatever. But it's like, it's not like an iconic film or anything, but obviously been chasing a disaster, Billy Pista's sort of idea here. But, you know, with someone like Sharon, who is such a creative, intelligent puncher, and obviously his steel has been sharpened happen by being along while and out. So it's like essentially carte blanche. This guy is religious. This guy believes in Jesus. The whole Noah's Ark, only one goat here was fire. Brought Poe back to life. The miracle idea. He used actually the same wordplay twice in different rounds. Using the number 4 and the word FOR, 4. I think he said like stage 4, and then he talked about wind being like category 4 at the end, and he talks about killing his career before it's born. You know, finally he believes in abortion. Abortion's ward, and I thought his third was sensational. His first I thought was terrific. I thought Sharon really killed it.
Yeah, totally. And I think that might have been the round as well where he said like, I'm the original flick, you're the recommendation. We're doing the Netflix bit, which was great. Was great. And he just came out barking. And actually, you don't usually get to see Sharon that aggressively. And I think, I feel like his haircut was working for him, you know?
He looked good. He didn't look like the sort of goofy teen that I know he's not. Like, he's a fucking boss right now. I think I saw on Facebook, let me just try and find it, he's doing like a Nike advert next week or something. Like, the guy is killing it. And also, shout out the Battle Resume episode. Like, it was a treat to have him on. That was one of my favourite episodes to do. And he was, really great guy. Really went in depth on, I don't know if you've seen that battle early on when he's at a school and he references a kid who died in a car. You remember
crash,
that, of course. All the way back from him battling Sandman and stuff like that. And that's another point as well. Like, for me, if an angle logically doesn't make sense, it just doesn't work for me. Like, it really bothered me when A-Ward was like, you're not a fan of battle rap, which of course is complete bullshit. He's like, you don't have one of the most viewed battled on... Since when did views mean anything? And he's like, you can't tell me who battled in Detroit 2 years ago. And it's like, well, no, but you can tell you battled in Toronto 10 years ago. You know what I mean? He's in deeper than you, so I don't know where you're standing on this.
That was a bit weak, I have to say. But what I would give... In terms of the second round, in terms of A-Ward's second round, because I guess that's where we're at, when he clowned the delivery of Sharon, that was amazing. That was hilarious. And like even Sharon said, I think afterwards he commented on the thread that we had going. He was like, that bar made me want to cut off my arms, kind of thing. So he appreciated it. It was on point.
Was that the round? It might have been the second or the third where A-Ward was trying to get people to move their hands, and I was like, I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of US podcasts and stuff like that are gonna be like, yo, like the crowd was dead. It's like, look, we're British. We don't move our hands in public, regardless of who's ushering us to. But it still was a little bit of a disconnect, and it's kind of like these guys were really bringing it, and it was kind of made me cringe a little bit that the Brethren weren't like. I know it's different in the room pay-per-view. There is a disconnect there, but on cam, it did seem like people just weren't infused.
I think it is. It's hard to say. People were definitely responding, but it wasn't the same kind of electric, shouty, explosion atmosphere that you got to estimate. And it wasn't. And even like I've been at previous, like even the Premier Battles events and some of the old Don't Flop ones. You got a lot more big responses, and there wasn't the sort of general consensus in the same spots as there were. I think. As well, because I was on stage for that one, and the one bad thing about being on stage was it was a bit more of a funny. You got a little bit of boominess on the voices, so you did miss punches and stuff just from being on stage. And I think also the very front row were getting some of that reverb sound as well. So it was almost like audio was better if you were kind of more near the middle or the back of the room.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because Sharon himself said it was 1-1 going into the third. I personally thought it was 2-0, but I mean, that's just me. People read battles differently. That's the beauty of this sport, and that's definitely what I've learned doing this show. I felt Ward's second ended weakly. Sharon, incorporated the idea of him being impersonated into him impersonating his old self. That was
funny.
Yeah,
that was
I thought that was really meta.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a few people in the front of the crowd moving their hands like him when they were being encouraged to and stuff like that. There were some nice angles as well. From what I remember, he was talking about him being in the Four Horsemen and his verses being more rewritten than the Bible was, which was really good. Yeah.
He had some really good material there, and he also did that bit about how you're a Christian who does gun bars, and he's like, oh, I call this gun God because it's imaginary or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
And I thought that was really funny as well. Like he had some really good, you know, because obviously Poe Rich did such, you know, I'm not even a big Poe fan, but he did some great work against A Ward, really breaking down the whole religious thing. So it was nice to see Sharon doing something with it still that wasn't just rehashing those ideas, you know?
It was. And, you know, Ward, as we say, got his mastermind on in the third round, asking questions. Do you know this? Glove up too, I think is what he referenced. And just, you've got to end with a sting in the tail, and if you're ending by referencing the Gryffindor crest, it's just a little bit lame to me. Like, look, personally, I don't fuck with Harry Potter, so maybe that's my own bias, but it's just a bit eye-rolling. Like, it's not something like, it's just something like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I guess, whatever, you know, and saying he isn't the most watched battler, he's an acquired taste, again, it's a bit of a contradictory statement. You know, some of his punches were a little... and look, again, I want to say I really like A Ward. Like, I really do. Man. His
freestyle ability is crazy.
His freestyle ability is outstanding. You know, his punches are incredible. And didn't he swear in this battle for the first time?
He did. Yeah. He said, "Spit your shit."
Spit your shit. Yeah.
Yeah, which was really interesting. Well, I mean, you know, it's interesting because a bunch of, like, people are going to freak out about it. But but I think it fit the rhyme scheme. I can't remember what he was saying, but he's like, he said something like took the wheels and start running the Flintstones whip or something, and then blah blah blah, spit your shit. So it fits. So I think he made a conscious decision to put it in. Yeah. It was. I mean,
I didn't really even notice, nor do I really care. But it's sort of an old thing, and it's interesting. You know, this sort of synchronicity in battle rap where Sharon's third speaks about this. No swearing, Aaron. It kind of works in Sharon's accent more than mine, but that was really nice. The hypocrisy of that. Right now, Loso's tweeting, "OMG, he effed up," which was really funny.
Great.
I mean, hilarious. I felt that Sharon, with his flip at the start of the third, it was really ambitious. Getting people involved, referencing Liam, referencing Oxy as well. It wasn't sewn up for me. It didn't have
it didn't
that.
Scan. I agree.
I thought it was really cool, and you know, it's someone as skilled as Sharon. You're hanging on every word that he says. You know he's going to go an interesting place with it, but it just didn't go there. And a lot of people on Twitter, I think Jay Black said this himself, like Sharon, you know, almost cynically got Oxy involved because you know that's an extra mil views.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because Oxy didn't know it was going to happen. I was stood right next to him, and then and literally, suddenly Sharon pulls him out of the crowd, like, or you know, and it was a little bit sort of cynical, I think. You know, but Sharon sometimes does do those sorts of things. Like, I remember when he spat some bar. I think it was at the 5th birthday where he said something about Depsman or whatever. He did like a bar about
that's
Depsman
right.
dying.
He did. Yeah,
and it was just like, come on, man. You know, that's an ill. It was just to kind of try and win some likes or something.
Yeah, I mean, A Ward says that he does current event bars and stuff like that. And A Ward was talking over Sharon's round when he was doing current events bars, which made me cringe a little bit. I've got Sharon winning. I have to say, I think it's quite clear in my eyes.
Yeah, well, I have Sharon 2-1. I won't lie. Like I have A Ward as taking the second, but definitely I thought it was Sharon's battle for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ward had some good stuff. The whole K-Shine turning the other cheek idea.
Oh yeah, you turned it first.
Yeah. That was really, really strong. So we pushed forward into the next battle, which was supposed to be the first battle, Caustic versus Bobby Rex. As I said before, I did some watches with Caustic. We did Tony D and Shotty and the Shuffler and C Major Clash, and he was talking a little bit about Bobby as well. And he was saying, as he left the hotel room, or as I left, that he'd thought of some bars in the interim. And there were a few bars, of course, that we as Brits had to explain to the Yanks. And one of the phrases they had never heard was "bottle it." Or bottle job. Right. So obviously, which means kind of, you know, fucked it up, kind of, you know, ruined it. The nerves got too bad. And he asked me and Kruger, he was like, "Can I call him Bottle Rex?" And we were like, that doesn't really work. Like, you have to bottle it. You don't bottle. So I guess you do kind of bottle something, but it wouldn't really work. And he asked us as well, what was welfare? What would transfer as welfare? And we said benefits. And he does say at the end of his third, get your like benefits card or something. There's like a homelessness.
He said, credit on your benefits card.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, this was an okay battle.
I thought Caustic was good in it.
Caustic was good in it. I'm gonna say the same thing I always say about Bobby, and I know he hates me saying it, but he is one of the most talented people I've ever seen in UK battle rap. When he's in his van, when he's in his front room on his iPhone just doing freestyles, I am there. I am captivated. Where this guy's mind goes, his storytelling, his multis. I don't know.
This is the thing. Yeah. Bobby can rap. He can really rap, and he's exceptional at it. And the other thing is he has a very, very commanding stage presence. Oh yeah, I think he said it before. He's managed to fly through some battles just off of his presence. But I think in this battle it didn't pay off for him because the first round he did some of his kind of Bobby Rex bully bars where he was like saying, "There's no metaphor here. I will just knock your head off" or something. Yeah. And everyone kind of fucked with it for the first round, but it didn't develop from there, and that was the kind of problem with his performance, basically.
Yeah. Bobby, you know what's boring? You telling people you're going to punch them. This isn't why we like battle rap. It's not. It's not empty threats. It's metaphorical threats. It's kind of, it's imaginative threats. Like, if it's literally you just being pragmatic and saying, I'm going to hit you, I don't give a fuck about this battle. I don't give a fuck about this battle. I thought his first was short. It was lackluster. He had some okay stuff here and there. He has a great personality. He has a great character. Probably the highlight of the battle was Caustic, Multi, and Bobby Rex with Office Desk.
Yeah, when he said your posture's wrecked, he's built like an office desk.
Yeah, fire.
So funny, man. And that was the thing is though, Caustic had loads of bars which wouldn't have been out of place, on some of his early battles because they were quite. Some of them were quite puerile, but in a really funny way. Like he said. Although this one's kind of very British specific, but he said like your bitch's ass is so flat she should rent it out, and and. My favorite line that he did was when he said, "Your bitch treats my dick like an asthma inhaler, so I stick something in her guts like Vlad the Impaler."
Let's go.
I loved that.
Shout out Dracula, in his speech, like that Lord Dracul. That was fire. I mean, Caustic, interestingly, he brought up Don't Flop and had a few bars.
Yes. And he did a thing about how Bagnall would have still been working for Don't Flop if Ur didn't do Bad Business or something. And then he did, I think he did something else. Oh, then he said, and I've seen him here today. So obviously, the scene doesn't learn or something like that. I can't remember.
Something like that. And then, he saying how he's done more for Don't Flop than Bobby had done. I've never really seen Bobby as a Don't Flop fanboy, so that angle didn't really... I mean, Bobby was on Don't Flop, but it was his
launch pad,
but I think he's had more battles off it than on it. And as I said before, I think what really launched Bobby... as cliche as it sounds, was the forum. It was his freestyles. I remember, I think he battled Evil and a few other people, but I remember in the build up to him versus Ambi at that where the fuck was that again? Sheffield, at the Sheffield event. That was the battle that I was really excited for. Well, it was that one and Shocks versus Johnny Storm, just because Shocks was coming back. That was really one I was looking for. And when
I was at that battle event.
Oh, you were there? Oh, that's Shuffle versus Heretic as well was so good.
Incredible. Yeah. And actually, to be honest, Yunnan versus Koj was sick as well.
That's a great battle. That's a really good battle. Yeah, love that battle. And I mean, that was a really good event. Actually, that was a really good event.
Yeah,
my first battling and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Caustic did enough, but I don't know. We kind of got to say goodbye to competitive Caustic. I think he could have really put Bobby in the ground here, but he kind of did enough to win. And you get a feeling that they're kind of, closer to just being friends and, whatever than this battle. But it's Bobby, I've got such respect for your talent, honestly. And it's but I don't know, as a battler, I don't know how incisive he is. I'm tired of hearing what your fists will do.
Sure. Yeah, I think he needs to stop leaning on that because, listen, he is, he doesn't need to say it. He's a physically intimidating person.
He's a scary dude.
Yeah. And this is the thing where, take someone like Pat Stay. He's physically intimidating, but he will drop those bars. He'll say that he'll punch someone or he'll rip their spine out or whatever. But he mixes it in with so much great writing and metaphor and funny, other parts of his performance that it's fine then. But if the performance is completely leaning on the fact that you are just harder than the other guy, that's not that interesting to me as a viewer, you know?
Yeah. No, I entirely agree. And it should be said as well that Bobby had mic troubles, I think, in the first or second.
He did, yeah. He wasn't even on in the room. Yeah. You couldn't hear him.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, this is not disparaging Bobby. I do think he's good. And he's one of these guys who, in the era of people not coming up and being kind of like stars or whatever, he still managed to break through that and be a name that people will pay to go and watch. So he is good. I'd love to see him reach his potential, which he's nearly got to sometimes, but it's just not often enough for him to.
We mention it a lot on Battle Resume. One of the great tragedies is that the event that they did after Checkpoint 3 was a Liverpool event. I don't know if it was a revival or something like that. The only real battle that came from that event, maybe there were a few of us, was that football bars battle with O'Shea, Coyle and Archaic. But it's basically the event that Cocaine ruined, because there were tons of battles that are on the pay-per-view that never got released, including Innuendo versus Raptor, a great freestyle battle, where they speak a lot about Soul versus Raptor. Innuendo absolutely kills it, and Soul's very... Raptor's very self-effacing in that. And also Bobby versus Raws, where they like freestyle over tons of like obscure left field beats, and I was in awe of both of them, but especially Bobby. I was like mouth agape at that guy. Like, he's supremely talented, and I know that I'm coming across as very, maybe offensive to Bobby fans or whatever, but I am a Giant fan. But just, it was a little disappointing, but it wasn't a surprise if I'm being honest. Like, kind of like the battle's how I expected it to go. Now, a battle that kind of went how I expected it to go, and not in a good way. I've got to say this is a bit of a disappointment, to be honest with you, in how average it was. Soul versus Arsenal.
See, now, because I got your message last night saying like, that you were underwhelmed or whatever. But listen, I really enjoyed that battle, and I know that I don't know, that might not scan with everyone, but I thought it was good. Not because I don't think Arsenal was very good. Okay, I thought he had an okay first, but I felt like, having seen Soul at SM8, where he had such a hard shift of it, and it was not an enjoyable watch, it was nice to see Soul get to while out on the same stage where I'd seen, you know what I mean? It just had like some sort of, I don't know, he doesn't need to be justified. He's one of the best in it.
He's my favorite battler of all time. Yeah, like, he's a god. Like,
but it was he had some great material, and it did feel like Arsenal had based his performance on what he had seen at SM8, and Soul came as the other Soul, which will kill you if you don't think he's going to be really good. Do you know what I mean? And I think Soul had some great bars, and his performance was really, excellent. So personally, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, he did. I enjoyed it, but as a Soul stan, I can't compare this to the Raptor clash, to the Tony clash, to the Dialect clash, to the Quill clash, to the Real Deal clash, to the Bender clash, to the C Major clash. Like, I just don't think his writing went the directions that he needed to go. And it was interesting that he started off by saying, "You want to battle Censor, bruv. Arsenal versus Censor would have been a way better battle."
Okay, yes, it's a definitely a better matchup, and I think even before the battle, Soul was saying to me like, okay, it's going to be a bit weird, because it is a weird matchup for sure. Yeah. And Sensa would have been the ideal matchup because that is the sort of the disrespect kings of both plays. You know what I mean? So that makes tons of sense, and that battle will happen, won't it?
I hope so. I mean, his first was still good. It was a little scattershot for me. The B-Tech substitute for Lux and Mook. The last bit of Interstellar gets invoked, and footy bars, and and Ars sort of did what he needed to do. But this sort of felt a bit like, I don't know if you watch Ural's Volume 4, but the main criticism about that card was that the battles were really random. There was no story to these battles. There's no narrative to these battles. But most of them were really fucking good. Like, Eclipse versus Twerk was great. Trez versus Danny was okay. But, there was some really good matchups in the midst of it. John versus O-Red and stuff like that. But this one just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like a rich kid with his action figures. And it you know what I mean? It didn't really, Ars had all that shitty Jedi stuff. And,
that was awful.
Soul in his second Naruto Telemundo, we got that earthy stuff. But I don't know. I wanted Soul to obliterate him, and I think Soul sort of scuffed the margins. Like,
right, okay. Well, it was funny when you mentioned that Jedi bar, because I was stood next to most prop at that point.
Oh yeah,
and like, there was a kind of, I don't know, a groan in the room a little bit, but also a few people liked the bar. And I turned, he turned to me and he said, yeah, that bar was shit when I said it, like when I battled Soul.
He did say that, yeah, in 2013, yeah.
So, it was nice to have his kind of running commentary with that. But listen, I feel like Arsenal looked like he didn't want to be there. He didn't bring the energy that would have made his performance better. Mm-hmm. I don't think he would have ever beaten Soul anyway. But yeah, I did like Soul stuff personally.
Yeah, I did.
Especially when he did because obviously like Arsenal did that bar about how he crippen and that stuff. That was quite funny because of the Scottish flag. But he then he like mansplained it and he was like, because the Scottish flag is blue and it's got a cross. But then that was, like how sometimes people accidentally set up other people's bars by mentioning something. Obviously in the third, that's when Soul started talking about how he did William Wallace bars and how we all paint ourselves blue, so I'll fit right in. Mm-hmm. Like that was set up perfectly by Ars mentioning it before, which made it hit harder, I think. And actually, that's the first time, because I spoke to Soul afterwards in Nando's of all places, obviously. Oh, wow. Where he said that's the first time he's ever done a William Wallace bar, and that's pretty impressive for someone like the biggest Scottish battler to have never mentioned Braveheart,
I mean, Soul versus Matter, the original battle, which is my favourite Don't Flop battle of all time. Yeah. He talks about the Scottish flag, and he says if you want to see Soul tire, that's as close as you'll get, and a Soul tire is like a diagonal cross on the flag. Right. I'd never heard that word before, and I looked it up.
Yeah, I've never heard that.
I'm sure I'll rewatch this battle, and Soul's rounds will pay dividends on closer reading, but it just wasn't. I don't know. There was still some great clowning stuff, talking in the third about him giving the best performance of fourth birthday, not against Shotty, but pretending that DNA's bars were good, which was really, really funny. And light up your whole movement like a heat map. And,
that was dope.
Soul won, but there was no decisive victor, I felt.
Right. Okay. Well, personally, I really feel like Soul won, but I can see your argument because it wasn't like crazy decisive in the room, I guess.
No.
But I just feel like I can't really quote that many of Ars's stuff. I can't really remember much.
Naturally, that's not the real battler he is, isn't it? But yeah, no, you are right. There isn't.
And then but Soul had stuff like he had that. He promised us fire, but didn't deliver like Ja Rule.
That was nice.
A great bar.
That was really nice.
He had enough of those kind of moments and like just sick structures with his rhymes that it was like, okay, he's won this. It may not be like the like confetti flying victory that people might not have wanted, but it was still definitely a Soul win for me.
I just felt this was Soul's crowd. Like Soul could have controlled this crowd, like he controlled like the Raptor crowd and stuff like that, or the C major crowd. Like I felt like they were really going to be on his side and hanging off every word, but there wasn't that kind of synchronicity between him and the audience. But yeah, I mean, Soul talked about the retiring stuff as well from Ars was really good. I think Ars said like Soul had been like looks like he'd been ordered from Amazon or something that. And I think Soul jerseys his second round as well.
He does. He says jersey.
Yeah. I
think the mistake that Arsenal made as well was because it's in the same venue, and when he came out for SM8, and he was up against Twerk, I mean they both put in loads of energy, and the crowd was fucking with everything that he was saying. So that super high octane energy really paid off, and that wasn't there for this event, so he couldn't feed or play off of that. And then also he tried to do the bit, like he tried to kind of repeat Gemini's bit where he was like basically you want to be racist right now, you want to say this essentially, and it just no one gave a shit about that bit, you know what I mean? Because they'd seen Gem do it, and also it just wasn't the crowd knows that Soul's not a racist, so it's just it wasn't interesting, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And we push forward into the final battle, Head Ice versus Chiller. This was a fucking boring battle, man. I don't know what it was like in the room. I despise this battle.
Yeah. Okay. So I was on stage again for this one, and actually, I really wish I wasn't. Not because it's not a like the not because it's a rubbish battle on paper, although maybe it's not really a great matchup on paper, but because of the sound issues, I couldn't hear hardly any of the shit that Chilla was saying. It was really, really a struggle to catch some of when he was going into his deeper schemes, or it was a struggle to catch what he was saying. And I caught a few bars, but it was really difficult to hear him. And because Head Ice's flow is so much slower and he's actually projects much louder, I heard more of his stuff. Although he did choke, and it wasn't. It was kind of throwaway bars, a lot of it as well.
Yeah.
So yes, for me, that battle dragged because I couldn't even hear half of it, and what I could hear wasn't really smashing it for me.
No, I thought it was painful in parts. Like, I said on Twitter, I don't know what the fuck he's going on about. It's kind of a cliche to talk about now. There's just loads of really strained wordplay, a lot of kind of American references that weren't... Fair enough, whatever. It's going on the King of the Dot channel. I understand that loads of people are going to watch this that would get those references. I think Chilla won, but not decisively. I've said on the channel many times, when I got into battle rap, I was the biggest Chilla stan. I was obsessed with Chilla. And now not so much.
Because we talked about the M-City battle.
The M-City battle, fucking hell. His president scheme is mind-blowing in that battle. His element scheme and all that sort of stuff. And, common link between these words, they end in city. Like, some of the best battle writing ever. With Chilla now, I think you can really see the strings. I think he's a little bit more laboured. I think no one was surprised that this battle was just fucking a bit of a snooze fest.
Yeah. I think. Listen, this is the first time I've seen Chilla battle a couple of times. This is the first time I've seen Head Ice battle. One thing that I will say for the guy is that even when he's saying bullshit, which a lot of what he was saying was kind of bullshit, he has got an amazing stage presence, it's undeniable. The guy, he has a commanding. He can just say nothing, and you're just like, okay, I'll listen to this guy. So there, so that was interesting to see. I just wish that it was a better battle. But one thing that I would say is I feel like this battle was necessary to have some more interesting title matches in the future, because I feel like pitting Chilla against, like a Real Deal or someone like that is going to be a much more interesting battle than Head Ice.
I mean, they've already battled.
Oh, I haven't even seen that.
Yeah, it was like Battle of LA or something. It was on King of the Dot. I think it was the battle he did after Daylight. And it's where Chilla stole Ogmios's bar brought the extraterrestrial. I mean, I don't know if he actually stole it.
I remember that, yes.
Yeah, it got mentioned. I mean, onward it goes, the King of the Dot defense. I think I saw Chilla earlier on Twitter saying he wants to do like a Grand Prix, get 10 people in the mix, and that is a nice way of doing it. But I look, people are gonna have different opinions on this, but for me, and I know Crafty tweeted that it was not only one of the most boring title matches, one of the most boring battles he's ever seen live. Yeah, it was pulling teeth.
I sort of feel like, for me, it was an exercise in just getting it over with. That's what it felt like.
But that's not what it should be. It should be this glorious contest for best battler in King of the Dart.
I know. So it wasn't inspiring, and no one was inspired on the run up to it. In fact, the best thing to come out of it was Dunch's bar about that's the best thing to come out of the title match, was the ice reference and the 21 Savage or whatever. Other than that, it wasn't great. It really wasn't great. And Head Ice's second round was like 8 minutes long, and it was too long. It was too long.
Yeah, he had he mentioned like attention and attend to your shin or something. Like I literally don't know what the fuck it was. And I don't know, Chilla got a bit mired in repeating the same word, the homonym sort of idea, and. Yeah, I mean, the battle was that. I think ultimately the big takeaway is A-Ward versus Sharon. If you're going to pick up this pay-per-view, that was a really good contest. I'm sure it's going to be debated in the future, no doubt, because both battlers brought it. But did anything go down behind the scenes on stage afterwards? Anything of note?
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't really want to be dry snitching.
Yeah, of course.
but I do think that. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
But one thing that I will say that's funny though is, listen, I've met Mickey Worthless like 10 times probably, right? And he, prior to, well, a few years ago when I first met him a few times, he just didn't remember my name. He didn't remember that he met me any time, and I don't really care. That's fine. But now, for the last 3 times that I've met him, he thinks that I'm you. So I was at that mental health battle, and I walked over to where Ur and that were, and I just said like, oh hey, and then he went, oh, it's Tom Kwei, and I was like, I'm not Tom Kwei. I was like, I'm Patrick, and he goes, oh, Patrick Kwei, sorry, yeah, Battle Rap Resume, and I was like, no, I was like, forget it, and left him, and then at this event, he came straight up to me and he was like, hey, Battle Rap Resume. I was like, dude, I'm not Tom Kwei.
I don't wear glasses. Like, what the fuck?
We don't look anything alike. No. We both live in Oxfordshire. Is that can you see that on us? Like, what the fuck is it?
That's funny, man.
That's ridiculous.
Funny. So, as always, follow King of the Dot. Yep. Go support the pay-per-view. Check out the watches we did on Ruin Your Day as well. Those were a real treat. And, it was funny as well because when we were doing Shufflo versus Seeing Cracker, Caustic was sort of ripping into Cracker the Honky throughout. And
really?
It's in a jovial way, in a battle rap sort of way. So that was a really funny thing as well. What about yourself, man? You mentioned, you sort of your music. Anything else? How do people find you?
So I released my own solo stuff. I'm called my solo artist name is Patrick Crow. I'm on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon and all that kind of stuff. You can also hear me on I've sung on quite a few like rappers tracks. So I'm actually on the C Major album, the 10,000 Hours.
Oh, what song are you on?
I'm on Running Through, I sing. And then also there was a single that came out before that, which I kind of prefer out of the 2 songs, and it's just on his SoundCloud. God, I wish I could remember the name of that one, but it's kind of like a bit more of I kind of while out.
Was that the format? Was that the one?
No, it wasn't on the format. It was literally a single that came out between the format and 10,000 Hours. And I've actually there's like 6 tracks I've sung on with C that haven't come out yet. And I've done some stuff with Lefty and Legionnaires and people like that as well. So you can catch me on all over the place. But right now, my solo stuff is Patrick Crow. You can check that out. You can check out my illustration page. So that's Patrick JPC illustration. And I pop up all the time in battle rap because I just love it. I'm very passionate about it. So you'll see me around,
Yeah, man, it's been great to have you on. We'll have to get you back.
I'd love that, yeah.
We do fan cast and stuff, so maybe we can go a bit more in depth about your history of the scene and Strange Clothing as well.
Yeah. Strange Clothing is my clothing company as well, and that the website is strangeclothingco.com, and that's, you've seen battlers wearing that, like Shuffalo, I repped it for ages.
Yeah,
Kruger,
in the Dialect and Zen battle, I remember him wearing that, right? Yeah, that's so fucking cool. Well, again, thank you, man, and cheers to everyone for listening. Follow us at Battle Resume. Get in touch with me, battleresume@gmail.com. We got lots of cool stuff coming up. You can support us on Patreon as well. Shout out to King of the Dart. I was a bit harsh really on the whole pay-per-view, but it is a great league in general, and a lot of people they're gonna have loved the pay-per-view, and that's fine as well. So leave us a review on iTunes, subscribe to the channel, comment below. Patrick, thank you again, man.
Thank you very much, dude. Thanks for having me on.